everyone, to the Kessel House at Most Wanted Music 2023. You know what I really love about this event today? I met so many people who are full of energy, dreams and ideas, because here is the place for exchange. But unfortunately, that's not how it works in everyday life, because there are some groups who are always marginalized. To change that, we must create a space where everyone has the same opportunities, a world where we can meet on equal terms. Sounds logical, but isn't always that easy, because we're not always aware of our own advantages. Hannes Tschürtz will show us strategies to level the playing field, and I welcome our very last speaker of today, CEO of Ink Music, Hannes Tschürtz.
Thank you. Are we set? Yeah, good. Good evening, everyone. That's been quite a fantastic day in conference, so thanks in the first place for inviting me at all, and thank you for staying, and for the hopefully not bitter end. Thanks for the opportunity to let me speak about things that truly matter, not only to me, but hopefully to you guys too. I will speak probably not so much about how, but maybe why we want and have to aim to level the playing field. Let me start like this. I'm a bit torn. On the one hand, I'm often a quite cynical, maybe even hopeless, sometimes sarcastic person, because, you know, there's a lot going on. There's climate change, there are ongoing wars, there's a disturbing number of idiots running parts of this planet. There's an increasing tension between ever more extreme ideologies and groups in the world. So if you summarize societal and media development over the past couple decades, you could say the invention of color TV led to a point where it now seems to show all the world in black and white. British songwriter Chris Rea had two massive hits in the 1980s. You might remember him. One was Driving Home for Christmas. The other one was The Road to Hell. In my cynical times, I often refer to it as both songs being about the same topic. But technically, I'm trying to refer to a lyrical part from the latter song. It goes, "The perverted fear of violence chokes a smile on every face, and common sense is ringing out the bells. This ain't no technological breakdown. Oh no, this is the road to hell." Is it though? Or have we just long lost ourselves in a sea of distractions led by quick-fire emotions, rather than that common sense, rather than the things that we learned and actually do know as human beings or even as a society? I recently stumbled upon a picture I took quite a while ago at the Austrian Parliament. At its entrance, it has Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that you might heard of. And it's engraved right there and states, "All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood." And sisterhood, I may add. The world agreed on this pretty much to the date 75 years ago, but we seem to have forgotten about it quite a bit. So by now, for the ones that listen, some of you might wonder what the hell I'm actually talking about, because after all, we are at the music conference. And I've been originally asked to, and I quote this from the original email, to talk about the music industry, tech, media, which topics were current, and what is the status of things, what's the outlook for the coming years. And all that has been happening throughout the year has affected the music industry quite heavily, and I believe that it will do so in the future too, including some fairly critical elections in the European Union next year, in the United States next year, and in my home country, Austria, where the right extremist party currently polls at 34%. So let me tell you why I think all this matters for the music sector and the whole industry. I truly believe that we have, or rather we are, the answer. We, being the people in the creative industries, which are named and called like this for a number of reasons. One is that whenever the times seem to be really dark, like probably right now, people turn their heads to the arts. Because music is the emotion that speaks. Because the pure definition of art is that art expresses what cannot be said, but must be noted. So I say, if the world is fucked, art fucks back. For a decade or so, I've been carrying around the idea of writing a book, How Music Leads the Way, how it always is first to enable or accelerate change. And I probably will never write it, lacking of time and inspiration. Yet I believe there is a point. Take technology. The music industry was the first to suffer from disrupting inventions in the digital age. Some of these were music-related inventions, like MP3. And then some tech guys were the first to solve the problems that arose, catering to the obvious hunger, if not needs, of a global audience for music, creating a business model and an entire shift in consumer behavior around it. Things that the book, film, and newspaper industry only slowly realized to learn for themselves, and the hard way, probably. Another example, we are here in a district called Prenzlauer Berg. When I first visited a friend who moved here in the late 90s, this was a very, very different place. This building, but also the whole district. A bit like in the New York Soho district in the 1970s, it was artists that went here first and helped revive scenery. So first were renovated houses and hip cafes coming in, because artists made this a livable place and a place worth going to. One could feel this was going to be the beginning of a huge transformation, which eventually happened. And now we call this with the term gentrification, sometimes even used badly. In Ukraine, when Russia invaded the country last year and bombed Kiev, people sought shelter in the underground. And what did people do to calm themselves down? They sang together, created small theater stages, they held plays for the kids to distract them from what was going on overground. You may be seeing where I'm going with this. Wherever life hurts, art can be, or maybe just is, the Band-Aid. And it makes life better, more bearable. Art is really a force. I truly believe that. I'll give you a tiny little personal example, and I'm sure many of you can relate. The things that happened in the last few years, the pandemic, different types of world crises, were obviously very difficult for many, either for ourselves, our families, for close friends. So we carry along a feeling of hopelessness, a lot of pressure, worrying about the future, not knowing where to go and what to do next. A global depression, if you will, somewhat different from the economic one 100 years ago. In the music industry, though, you can see and sense these trends. Music seems to have a sense of that. So quite early on, music actually tackles the issue. So while 15 or 20 years ago we discussed how digital ticketing would work, or how security at a festival could be improved, or how we could export our music better, a couple of years ago the term mental health started to appear at conferences, and does so even more often today. And it also appeared in songs a couple of years ago, even on whole albums much more often these days. By now, this is something that's debated all over the place, not only in the music sector, not only in the creative industry, but really everywhere. It found its way to the top into way more fields. In the first place, it seems a bit odd when music is also emotional and exciting to work in, if you want to enter the industry. On the same page, there's been a realization of how unhealthy the supposed lifestyle in this industry is or can be. Great expectations from all sides play a very big role and are very stressful and harmful to all of us. So one enters the industry seeing how cool everyone acts, so they try to act cool themselves. One comes in to see how successful everyone appears, so they try to appear successful themselves. One complies with the behavior they see around themselves because this is what humans do. So that makes most of us actors, if you like, to some extent. If you think about it now, it was never surprising that these things resulted in some sort of fear and pressure, and all of a sudden, something like substance abuse is not super cool, but rather unveils itself as a coping mechanism to overcome all these fears and pressure. No, it's not really the party, it's not really the fun that you're trying to have with these. It's more likely just washing away the pains and the insecurities you have. It's very likely not what you came into the arts for, but a coping mechanism. It's probably also driving you away from where you intended to go with your music and your art in the first place. We are all slowly starting to acknowledge all this, and it seems we are at the forefront yet again, the avant-garde, if you will, quite literally. We are in the midst of a movement that shifts expectations into a totally different place. So thank you first and foremost, Most Wanted Music, for the subtitle of this event, which is Humanize. Quite a big task, if you ask me. Summary of the year. So I'll fill you in. One of my favorite tracks of this year is by an Australian singer-songwriter called Angie McMahon. It's called Letting Go. I somewhat hear it as a perfect summary of all this, although it's a very, very personal song about her own state of mind. But as always with music, everyone is left with his or her own interpretation. These are lyrics from that song. I might have spent 6 months lying on my living room floor. I might have been sick, then went sick some more. I might be prouder of me than I have ever been. I've been learning about letting go, how to do it without my claws scratching the surfaces. I've been learning about wasting time and closing some doors, hoping to open more down the line. I knew from miles away that I would detonate. I tried some magic tricks to skip my fate, and then gave up the ball as a defender. The trick was simply to surrender. The song ends with an endless chorus of her saying, "It's okay, it's okay. Make mistakes, make mistakes." I, as a 46-year-old cynic, needed to hear that so badly that I had to cry when I heard the song first. For me, the song said what had to be said, but no one dared to tell. It's okay. Make mistakes. Go forward. Take risks. Showing your weakness sometimes is a sign of incredible strength. And there is absolutely no need to act, not even in this industry. Humanize. So I say, if your life is fucked, let art fuck back. So you see, there might be much more wrong at the moment, and I haven't even touched what's spoiled in the current musical ecosystem in this, our very own industry. What's on the table with many of the things we've heard and discussed today, like artificial intelligence and so forth. And maybe, just maybe, the future's so bright that we gotta wear shades, which is, yet again, another lyric from a Timbuk3 song from the 1980s. So let me walk over that bridge by telling you my favorite joke that you probably don't like. An optimist and a pessimist meet in the street. "Hey," says the optimist, "long time no see. How are you doing?" "Absolutely terrible. It could not possibly get any worse," goes the pessimist. The optimist says, "Don't worry, it will." Thanks for the solidarity. It's for the sarcastic mood, of course. On the surface, the music industry is in the midst of a gold rush, if you look at the numbers, particularly at the ones that major labels have, or the IFPI report shows, or if you look at what a Taylor Swift tour eventually makes in money. Everyone's making a lot of money right now, it seems. Ironically, though, when there's so much money, people don't start to share all of a sudden. The famous trickle-down effect, it doesn't really happen. They rather start getting greedy instead. They always want an even bigger part of the cake, and their interests become much more individualized rather than socialized. Only in dark times, they feel the need to stand together and ask for help from another. If there's money to be shared, they want to have the big cake. So it's not really the DSPs who argue they want to have the noise out. They don't want natural sounds, white noise, or so-called artificial artists to make money off their service. It's more the major labels you hear this from, the ones that really make shitloads of money right now. It's them who ask Spotify to cut off tracks with less than 1,000 streams from any revenue in the future, which is a questionable discussion. Artists who make less than 1,000 streams can possibly live off their streaming income anyway, they say. Which again, sounds quite cynical if you look at it. Credit where credit is due, it's true. 1,000 streams make up like €3 or so probably nothing to argue about, right? The idea, the concept though, to pretend to solve the busker's problem by taking away his head is a bit awkward, to be honest. Spotify argued they will redistribute the 0.5% who represent these songs from below 1,000 streams, take that away and distribute it amongst 99.5% of the others. This should bring some 40 million euros annually, which sounds impressive. At the end of the day, it's not a lot of money for those who profit the most, which of course are the ones that have the biggest share in all this, which of course are the big labels again, who have a lot of money thanks to their catalog anyway. So even all that leads me back to the Declaration of Human Rights, because in that case, it should mean if you have power, don't abuse it. Realize that you, at the end of the day, bite the hand that indeed feeds you, with the same people on the same planet, working in the same field, in the same industry. We're equals. Treat us as equals. Every song starts to be successful with those first 1,000 streams. Every artist starts out with their first 1,000 streams. Even Taylor Swift did. Even Drake did. Even Bad Bunny did. And at the end of the day, it's art that you're dealing with. So it's not always just about the numbers. Respect also means that you and your algorithms should acknowledge the sheer dimension of what you're doing with your business. For instance, I totally buy Daniel Ek's intention of the foundation story that he started his company for the love of music. I really buy it. The tool is so brilliant, and what his company created stuns me every day. He also should see not only the numbers that it creates, but really the value that made him start this. The value is not necessarily measured by what a stream pays, but its sheer existence, the sheer existence of a song, the sheer existence of the career of an artist. If you're in a small market, let's say Estonia, Slovenia, Malta, you probably don't have a DSP office in your country. Much bigger countries like Austria don't have a DSP office in their country. You don't have editorial support. You don't have visibility. You cannot really afford a huge budget to break out your small market immediately. In consequence, the algorithm doesn't really kick in, because even if your numbers are great in perspective of your smaller market, they're close to nowhere in the actual big world. So say 10,000 people in Estonia are listening to you, and you're an Estonian artist. Wow, actually that's really a lot. 10,000 people put into context for German market would be 1 million people over here. 10,000 people, 10,000 listens rather, create something like 30 euros. So that's not a lot. Estonia has a very proud culture and a very unique language. So roughly 1 million people only speak the language. It's very unlikely with the current model that Estonian folk songs, how popular they might be in their own country, will break through to reach a global audience. It's practically impossible. So it won't reach the pop charts, and therefore it won't make money. This will soon, and rather sooner than later, raise the question, can you actually afford to produce local culture in the future if the world agrees on this as the dominant and only business model? Of course, and this is an important point, we know that there's no human right to be successful in the music industry. That streams pay enough money for everyone is practically impossible, at least yet. And I'm fully aware of all this. Of course, the so-called white noise problem is one key point of unfairness in the system, And I really appreciate that the DSPs are trying to fix this already. I'm not suggesting, though, that minimum fees per stream are paid or so either. I acknowledge and appreciate how Spotify can extend your reach and scale and, in fact, make you really successful from a small country, bringing you to scale on a global level, giving you an audience at a place you never even thought of reaching. Its tools are really amazing and made for that. Great. But we will have to see whether this model is not actively, yet maybe unknowingly, is helping to destroy a nation's culture for business reasons. Not least because we have other challenges ahead. Again, artificial intelligence and all that, the world situation in general. We have to discuss alternatives in time. In my view, a dominant player like Spotify, or for that matter, the major labels themselves, have to show a minimum of social and moral responsibility for the culture they profit from so heavily. It maybe would make much more sense if, say, the first 100,000 streams pay not less but much more money than, say, the 100 millionth streams of Drake and Bad Bunny. It actually will create much more opportunities, much more positivity, much more culture, indeed, and much more equity if they were to redistribute more money in that direction instead of the other way around. It's an idea. What's also being discussed already in several European countries right now is a levy for streaming services that makes them contribute a certain share of their income to local culture. So they have to contribute to a local culture at the end of the day. I'm quite curious where this discussion will go in the future, but similar models are in place already in the film industry, and the audiovisual industry should follow suit. In countries like the Netherlands or Switzerland, laws in that direction have been passed just recently. So this would be a form of cultural tax. And if you speak German, you probably know that the word tax in German is Steuern, which translated back to the English language would very literally mean steering. This is what it's meant to do. This is what it should do. Steering. Let's steer this ship back in the right direction then. Let's use it. So to sum it up, frankly, it can all be very frustrating. If you take a look at the global problems, actually we kind of know everything. We have written down the guides for this on paper a long time ago. We have seen many of the problems we are currently facing in similar or equal forms before. We would have the money, we would have the means to actually fix a lot of these problems. Gender inequality, hunger, poverty, climate change. There are brilliant plans out there how to solve and fix this. Yet we as a global society, we obviously just decide day by day, we rather not. It seems we therefore more than ever need the arts, yet again, to put the finger where it hurts, to show us the way out of this, and to be the ringleaders of change, to be that force that we actually are. The tide is high, but so far we are holding on. I'll let you sing this all along now, all night, if you like. But on days like this, I'm kind of certain that art will eventually fuck back. And these are the words I leave you with, so good night and good luck.